How to consume Jira Webhooks using CloudBees CI. Has this ever happened to you? You receive a Slack message asking you to check your email to click over to the latest Jira issue that has the values that you need to extract to use as parameters to run a job. It seems silly, right? Well, sadly, that happens on a daily basis. However, with CloudBees CI, there is a way to eliminate all of this error-prone human interaction and just have Jira send over the necessary information to CloudBees CI so that the jobs can run themselves. Here's today's starting point. I have a CloudBees CI Operations Center and Client Controller. Both are version 2.303.2.6. When both the Operations Center and the Client Controller were installed, they were installed using Install Suggested Plugins. There is a link to a gist that has all of the instructions and other links that we're going to be talking about down in the description of this video. I would recommend that if you haven't watched them yet, you should go watch the cross-team collaboration video and how to integrate Jira with Jenkins. As I just mentioned, we're going to be using cross-team collaboration today, and specifically the external webhooks feature that's available on the Operations Center. So first up, let's go ahead and create that external webhook listener on the Operations Center. So we are on the Operations Center. We're going to go to Manage Jenkins and Manage Notification Webhook Endpoints. We're going to create a new endpoint, and the webhook name is going to be called, let's see what I have here. I have Jira Cloud Issue Update. So what we're going to be looking for is any issues that have been updated. We're going to change the webhook message format to custom JSON webhook. And since we don't have the ability to sign the messages that are being sent over from Atlassian, because I'm using Jira Cloud, I'm going to change the message signature to none, and I'm going to go ahead and put in a list of IP addresses. This list of IP addresses was extracted from a document on the Atlassian documentation site. The link for that is down in the gist. So let's recap what we've done here. I've given it a name. I've set it to custom JSON webhook. I've set the message signature to none, and I've defined a list of IP addresses that are only specific to the IP addresses that Atlassian publishes. So let's go ahead and click on Save Webhook. And what we have is an endpoint URL. So I'm going to copy this, except I have a proxy set up. So I'm going to be giving Jira the full proxy domain versus just the internal OC8888. So I'm copying this, and I'm saving it off to the side so I don't forget it. And once we get this going, then what we will do is go ahead and head over to Jira. Okay, so let's get into Jira. And what we're going to do is we are going to set up the publish side of a webhook on Jira. Now here's how we do that. I'm going to the gear, and then I'm going to System. And from System, I'm going to scroll down to Webhooks. And with the webhook, it says no webhooks are configured. I'm going to create a webhook. Now for the name, I'm going to give it, this is going to be Jira Issue Update. Enabled, and then I'm going to put in for the URL my proxy and the rest of the URL. So what I have here is, there we go. So I have my full proxy address, which is running through ngrok, and then I'm saying /webhooks 30zbz, which is this endpoint right here. So we're defining this endpoint. I'm going to skip the description, and the only issue-related event that I care about is issue updated. Now, how do I know what this is going to do? If you were to take a look at the webhook documentation, again, the link to this documentation is in the gist. It will walk you through all the different options that you have. and you can get down to one section, which is registering events for a webhook. We can see here that we're going to be looking for a jira::issue_updated. So keep that in mind. We'll see that again in just a few moments. So I'm just going to check the one box and scroll to the bottom and click Create. Now, I could have added in more events to look for, but for right now, I'm defining and tightly scoping what event is going to be sent and then what I'm going to be processing on my side inside of my controller. Now, I am going to edit this webhook one time just so you can see how you can edit. I am going to make a change here for all issues, and I'm going to scope this down so you can see how you could do it. Let's say that I only want to send issues for the project work because, number one, that's the only one I really care about sending webhooks out to my controller, but also it's the only one I have right now. So I'm going to type project, and you can see that it's giving me a help as I go through here, and I'm going to say equals, I'm going to say work. And that's that. So it's going to be project equals work. So if we go down and save it again, then we can see here that the JQL for this is project equals work. Okay, we've set up a webhook listener on the Operations Center, which also means that we've installed all the cross-team collaboration plugins, and we've enabled all of the notification parts that need to be enabled. Again, if you haven't watched the video about cross-team collaboration, now is a very good time to do that, because from this point forward, I'm assuming that you understand the basics of cross-team collaboration. So let's go back over to our controller. So we're good on our Operations Center. We have our endpoint. I'm going to click on Dashboard and go down to my controller. I'm going to create a new item, and it's going to be named Jira-issue-updated. It's going to be a pipeline, and I'm pulling this in from a repository where I already have defined my Jenkins file. So I'm going to change this over to pipeline script from SCM, get, I'm going to grab my URL, which is right here. I'm on the main branch, and the name of this is going to be Jenkins file Jira-issue-updated. We'll go take a look at this right now. So if we go into the repository, if I take a look at Jenkins file Jira-issue-updated, to be specific, I'm pulling in a shared library, which has already been defined on my controller. I've set up an event trigger looking for webhook event equals Jira::issue-updated. Now, if you think back to the documentation a few moments ago with webhooks, this is what's going to be sent over to us. But how do I know that I'm matching on webhook event? Well, the easiest way to figure that out, number one, it's right here, webhook event in the documentation. The other thing we could look at is there is an example here that is down towards the bottom, if I can find it. Again, here we go. It's right here. If you keep scrolling, we'll see an example that webhook event is jira-issue_updated. So in my Jenkins file, I am looking for if the event, webhook event, equals Jira::issue_updated. So in this case, that's the trigger I've defined. And if this stage is seen being triggered by the event, then what's going to happen is it's going to go through and print out what the message was that was received. And then I have a shared library step called Jira process changelog items. If we go back to the documentation here and we scroll up just a little bit, we can see here in the documentation that the changelog comes in on the event, and it's an array of items, and there can be one, there can be many. So we're going to be processing each one of these in order. So let's take a quick look at what Jira process changelog items does. So what we can see here is it's going to pull in the changelog items from the event object from our current build get build causes. If changelog items is empty, we're just going to say no items found in changelog, just in case for whatever reason there was no changes reflected, we're just going to exit quietly. No problem. But if we did find changelog items, then we're going to iterate on changelog items, and then we're going to be looking at a from to string. If we take a look at our example here, we can see that there was a from string and a to string. Now, in this example, this one's saying what is going on here in the from to a new summary, or we're moving from improvement to new feature. Again, this is going to be up to how you have your Jira workspace configured, the types of statuses, all of that matters. In my case, I have a very vanilla Jira Cloud workspace. I've done practically no customization to it. In your case, you might be doing a lot. So follow this as a guide, and then you can create whatever you need to conform to your Jira configuration. But if we take a look back here, what I'm saying is let's build a string from and to. So I'm going to do a case statement, and what this is saying is if I'm moving my issue from backlog to selected for development, which are two of the statuses, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to extract component and fix version from the Jira issue. And then from that point, I'm going to create a new JSON string, which is deploy to QA because I'm going to be creating component and fix version on the Jira issue. And then we're going to publish a new event with this where there is another job listening for the deploy to QA event. Same thing if we move from selected for development to in progress. I've defined that as moving from QA to stage. So then that means I'm going to be deploying to stage. So let's go back over to Jira and let's make a change to our issue and move it from backlog to selected for development. Now what I have here is I have an issue created from Jenkins. It's work 4. We can see that it's still in backlog and we're going to move it over to selected for development. Let's see what happens here. So I'm going to move this to here. So now let's head back over to our controller and test out what's going to happen here. So we have our Jira issue updated. So let's take a look at that one again. So we're going to say when we're triggered by event trigger cause if webhook event equals Jira issue updated. Now, one thing that we need to do if we take a look at this job is we currently do not have the trigger set up. We've defined this job, but we never ran it once to get the trigger set up. And what we're looking for is build whenever the specified event is seen. That's not checked. Nothing has happened yet. So what we need to do is we need to run this job one time. So we're just going to say build now. But because of how the job is written, because we're saying agent none, we're checking for this, but this example stage is going to be skipped because when we just ran it manually, it wasn't triggered by event cause, so therefore none of this happened. But what we're going to see is if we go back and look at configured now that we ran it once, so we can see it ran once, it did clone the shared library, but it says stage example skip due to when conditional. That's all fine. But if we take a look at the job now, the specified event is set up correctly with webhook event equals Jira issue_updated. So with everything set up, we have our webhook listener on the Operations Center. All of the cross-team collaboration notification parts are enabled. We've set up our webhook publisher, if you will, on the Jira side, and we're only going to be publishing events if it's an issue updated. That's going to be sent to our proxy, which is setting in front of our Operations Center, which will then accept that webhook, which via cross-team collaboration will then publish that event out to the controllers that are listening. We will have this job that's listening for that specified event, and then that job will wake up and run. So let's see if that's what really happens. So I'm going to go back over to our controller, and I'm going to move this issue from backlog to selected for development. Now let's go back over to our controller, and let's look at Jira issue changed, or Jira issue updated. Let's see what happens. We can see here that it took a few seconds, but number 2 started up. I didn't click anything. We can see that it's running. Let's go into it. We can see it was triggered by event, and it's outputting what caused it, the event trigger cause. It's what we expected. Here is the full event within this event block here. that was received at the Operations Center and then forwarded on down to us. We can see the webhook event is jira-issue-updated. Here's all of the data associated with that issue, but most specifically what we're looking for is the changelog items, which are typically at the bottom. And we can see the changelog here. The from string is from backlog, and the to string is selected for development. So we can see here, based on that, we matched. So that's from backlog to selected for development. That matches this string right here, and therefore it did a publish event. Well, in our case, we're just publishing the event with this job. This job is doing nothing more than accepting messages, and based on what's in the message, it creates a new event with the necessary information to go and do real work. So let's take this one step further. I have the job that's listening for the messages from Jira. And this job is basically taking the message coming in, pulling off the data, recreating a new object that we're going to send as an event. In this case, event deploy to QA, and it's pulling the component from the event and the version from the event, from the fixed version attribute. And then this new JSON string is being published. So now we need to set up a job that is listening for this event. So in this case, what we're going to do is we're going to go back over to our controller and we're going to set up two new jobs. So what I'm going to do is I am going to first create a new item, and it's going to be called Jira Deploy to QA Pipeline. And what I'm going to do is set this up because this is also in that same repository. And again, the link to all of this is in the gist. I'm going to click on main, and my script path is this, deploy to QA. Okay, so that one's ready. And now I'm going to do one more. I'm going to create another one called Jira Deploy to Stage. So I'm going to say new item, but this time instead of saying pipeline, I'm going to go down here to copy from, and I'm going to say Jira Deploy to QA. I'm just going to copy from this one and make changes. So if we take a look at this, that looks fine. That's good. I just need to change this. And much like the issue updated job, we need to run this once, because if we take a look at the configuration, we don't see an event that it's listening for. So we need to make sure that we run it once to get that event primed and listening. So I'm going to click on Build Now. We're still in the Deploy to Stage one. If I take a look at Configure, then now we have an event Deploy to Stage. Let's go take a look at our Deploy to QA. Look at the configuration. Again, no specified event yet. Let's go ahead and save it. Build now. Let's take a look now at this first run. Now we take a look at configuration, and it's deploy to QA. So that's good. So what we have here are two other jobs. Let's take a quick look at them. They are practically the same job, but they're just a little bit different based on where they're at in the workflow. So this is the deploy to QA. And we're saying event deploy to QA, and then we're going to be lifting off the component and version out of that. And in our case, we're just going to say echo deploy to QA for component : version. So this is true for deploy to QA. If we take a look at the stage one, which I'll just type in since it's in the same place, then we're checking for deploy to stage. And then this time, instead of echoing deploy to QA, we're echoing deploy to stage. Now, this could be just as easily a chance to call a Helm chart or run some sort of kubectl command or any other type of command that you want, because you have the values of the application, in our case, that you want to deploy. And in that case, for us, we're deploying component : version. So do whatever with this that you want. These are the pieces, these are the building blocks that you can take and build out whatever you want to do. So let's go back over to Jira. I'm going to take and move this issue back to backlog. And what we're going to see here is that the job for jira-issue-updated does run. It's queued up and ready to run. But let's see what happens here. We moved it in such a way that there is nothing listening for that specific event because we moved from right to left. And we can see here that there is no publish event here because instead of going from left to right, we went from right back to left. So in that case, there's nothing matching that direction. But now what we want to do is we want to go ahead and go back to Jira. We're going to move this issue from backlog to selected for development. Just moving one because going back to our custom step here, this is how we're moving. We're moving from backlog to selected for development. That's just one move to the right. Or we're moving from selected for development to in progress. That's just one move to the right. If you were to take a look at this Kanban board, this is backlog, selected for development, in progress. I could move an issue directly from backlog to in progress, but nothing would happen because I have not defined my processing of the changelog items to know what to do with that. You could choose to handle that type of scenario, but in my case, I'm not. So let's go back over to our job and let's take a look at what's happened here. We had a job run complete at 4, and we can see here that it did publish. When we get down to the bottom, we published an event notification. If we come back over here to deploy to QA, we're going to see that job run 2 completed. And we can see here that it says echo deploy to QA for node:/LTS Alpine 314. But notice nothing has happened yet for our deploy to stage. We're still just having this single run of the job, which was to prime our event. So now if we were to go back to Jira and move this issue one more time from selected for development to in progress, let's go back over to our controller. Let's watch Jira deploy to stage. What we should see here momentarily is that an event shows up here in the build history, and it's queuing up the job to run build number 2. We can see here, it takes a little bit of time. It's not immediate, but it's usually reasonably quick. So now if we take a look at this, we can see the job ran, and we see deploy to stage for node:/LTS Alpine 314. As we've seen in this video, by sending webhooks from Jira back to your CloudBees CI controllers can reduce or potentially even eliminate all human communication when manual work needs to be done after a Jira issue is updated. If you have any questions or comments, you can reach out to us on Twitter @CloudBees. If this video was helpful to you, give us a thumbs up. And if you haven't subscribed to CloudBees TV yet, why not? Take a moment, click on that subscribe button, and then ring that bell, and you'll be notified anytime there's new content available on CloudBees TV. Thanks for watching, and we will see you in the next video.